In today's video, I'm going to show you how to master the single most important movement if you want to get lifelong health and fitness results. When you know how to do this movement well, you're going to get really good results from your health and fitness training. You're going to be much less likely to get injured, and you're going to increase your independence throughout the length of your life. When you're not very good at this movement, it's going to hold you back in your training. You're going to be much more likely to get injuries, and you're going to feel like your training is underpinned by pain and difficulty. So my name's Mike Jones. I'm the founder of a multi-award winning consultancy that works with businesses and helps busy professionals and leadership and management positions get into a good place with their health and fitness alongside busy lives and jobs. I also used to be a gym owner, so I've got over 5,000 hours of coaching people of all ages, shapes and sizes there. And before that, I was a personal trainer in the army. So I've worked with a lot of people, and I know that we've all got different goals when it comes to our health and fitness. And most of us just want to get into good shape with as little time and effort as possible. And the most important movement that you can master at the start of this journey is your squat. So if you want to go from not feeling like you've got any confidence in your fitness and not knowing what to do, to feeling like you've got a really good base and that you are pain-free and able to get the most out of your training, stick with me on this video so that you can learn this movement that underpins all of your health and fitness efforts. So if you're interested in getting into great shape and making that fit around a busy life, but you don't necessarily want to go to the gym and spend hours training, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and like these videos to keep up with all the videos that I'm putting out at the moment. We've got a specific focus on helping you through this video series understand training, feel confident with your training, and be able to train in a way that's minimal, takes you less than kind of 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, and gets you the results that you deserve. Now, you might think, I've got no interest in squatting, I don't want to be big, I don't want to be muscly, I don't want to be a weightlifter, but what you've got to understand is that the squat is a very natural human movement, and when you can squat properly, you're going to be pain-free, you're going to be able to perform, you're going to be able to utilize all your muscles, you're going to increase your chances of having good posture. When you can't squat well, all of those things are held back. You can't move properly, you can't recruit all the muscles that you've got in your body, you're much more likely to have poor posture and the pain that brings about. So what I'm going to take you through in today's video is starting at the very basic level. How do we squat to a box? How do we get to full depth air squat, which is squatting without any weight? Then we're going to look at how we can incorporate a bit of weight into it so that we can actually start to improve core strength and improve positioning of the movement. And then finally, we're going to go on to the most difficult version, which is what we call the overhead squat. And the reason that we learn the overhead squat is because it tests our shoulder and spinal mobility as well. So we're going to go from the very basics of how you start all the way up to being able to nail an overhead squat. And when you can do that, you're going to be in better flexibility and better capability than 90% of the population. So we start off focusing on our flexibility, or what I like to call mobility, right? And this is where we look at, can we get into the full depth squat that we're supposed to be able to get into? And if we can't, that's okay. Lots of us can't because we spent years sitting down at desks and on chairs, etc. But we need to get that level of flexibility back up, because if that flexibility is off, then that means that the muscles aren't balanced. And when the muscles aren't balanced and we start training, and bearing in mind pretty much all of our training is going to use the muscles around the hips and the legs, which we use in the squat, if those muscle balances are off, we're much more likely to get injured. So we need to make sure, whether our goal is just to be fit or to live longer or to be a high level athlete, we need to make sure that we've got good balance in the most important muscles in the body. They're all important, but the hips and the knees are really important when it comes to health and performance. So the first thing that we want to measure, or we want to test, or we want to achieve, level 1, is just being able to get into a full depth squat. Now, the only time that I would say you shouldn't think about doing this is if you've had a hip replacement or a knee replacement. And in that case, you need to speak to your physio, speak to your doctor, and get advice on how deep should you be squatting. But if you haven't had a knee or a hip replacement, regardless of what your age is, regardless of what your shape is or your fitness goal is, this is something you should be focusing on and prioritizing. Now, it's going to feel difficult at first because we're tight, but the human body is a really cool and adaptive thing, and what it does is, over time, if we just keep giving it the right stimulus, it'll adapt regardless of whether you're 90 years old or 50 years old. The body's really adaptive, so doing these movements will help you get into the right position. So first of all, I want to show you the achievement, the level 1 standard that we're trying to achieve. So what we want to test at the start is, are we able to get into a full squat position? And now, there's a few things that we're looking for to count this as a pass. So I'm not in an active squat. This would be called an active squat. That's not what I'm trying to test here. I'm just trying to test my ability to get into a full squat position. And there's 3 really important things that I'm looking for when I'm doing this. So the first one is, can my heels stay in contact with the floor? Many of us are going to try this and the heels are going to come up like this. Okay, so this isn't what I call a pass. This shows us that we've got some tightness around the ankle. Super common. I'm going to show you how to fix it later. But that's the first thing. Can my heels stay in contact with the floor? The second thing that I'm looking for is, can my hip crease, so this part of my hip, go below my knees? If it can, then we're on track for a pass. If it can't, I'm getting stuck here, or the only way I can get down is then by lifting my knees up. That shows us again that we've got some tightnesses. It's okay, but we need to identify that so we can fix it. And then the third thing I'm looking for is, can my knees stay tracked over my toes? Okay, so I don't mean how far forwards they're going, but I mean that they're kind of in line with my toes, not like this, and caving in. So that would be a fail as well. And what that actually shows us is that we're too strong on the inside of our legs and a bit weak on the outside. So this is level one. Can I get to a full depth squat position? If you can, you're going to skip over to the next level, which is a 5-minute hold. But if you can't, which is going to be a lot of us, we're going to break it down by doing another level first. And that is, we're going to squat to a target. Now this box, as it says here, is 18 inches. So the first thing that we want to work on, if we can't get all the way down, is giving ourselves a target. You can get a tape measure. It doesn't have to be a gym box, but you can get a tape measure and stack up a load of books at home or whatever it might be, and work on being able to squat to 20 inches without lifting those heels up. Once you can do that, you want to keep bringing that level down using the box until you're able to get into that full depth position. There's loads of stretches and things that you can do, and I'll do a separate video on how to foam roll your calves and things like that. So there's loads of different stretches that you can do to increase this, and I'll show you some of my favourite ones today. But just to keep it simple, the best thing you can do to improve your squat is to get into a squat position. And when you do start doing it and you do start trying to get deeper, yes, you're going to get aches and pains. And what we want to do is make sure that we are going down and feeling the stretch and feeling a bit of pain, but not staying down there long enough that it's really hurting us. And over time, what that'll do is it'll stretch those muscles, get us into that right position. So now I've dropped that from a 20 inch now to a 12 inch. So this is a much lower box now. And you can see that that's almost me in my full squat position. So once I'm able to start getting down to here, and I'm really concentrating on sending my hips back, keeping my heels on the ground, coming back up, as I start to be able to squat to a box that low, I'm going to find that I'm all of a sudden going to start being able to get down into that position. Another favourite stretch of mine that can really help you do this is to get an upright. So obviously I'm in a gym here, but if you're not in a gym, you can do this at home with a banister, with a door frame, whatever it might be. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold on to something in front of you, and you're going to come down, and if we've got tight ankles, which is the most common reason why we'd fall back from a squat, we're going to fall back, or we're going to lift the heels up. So what I can do here is hold on to this, but what I need to do is make sure that I'm not just sitting like this, and this is what Laura, who's filming, this is what she does, okay? Because she's got really tight calves, so she'll go, okay, well, I'm doing it, and you're not, because you're not actually getting the stretch. So what I'm trying to replicate here is being in that position where I could let go and stay upright. So I need to actually pull my knees forwards and get this nice deep stretch into the back of my calves here. And I want to just come down here and see if I can hold that for a minute, for a two, just a couple of minutes until I'm feeling that nice deep stretch. And what I should feel is a stretch all around my calves and a stretch in my butt as well, especially if I'm activating this muscle here. So the first standard we want to get to is simply being able to sit in a full squat, and what we're looking for is heels in contact with the floor, hip crease below the knees, knees over toes. You can either do that or you can't. If you can't, that's your first priority. So I'm not going to go into stretching into too much detail today. Now I am going to do a separate video on foam rollers and specifically how you can foam roll your joints and foam roll your muscles to loosen them off. But what I will say is that if you've got really tight calves, if you've got a lot of pain in the back of your leg and around your Achilles here, it might be worth spending some time mobilizing your calf and your ankle. The first thing we do in that process is roll them. So it's basically giving yourself a massage, and you can do that with a foam roller. I'm going to do a whole separate video on that, which I haven't done yet, and on a method that we call RSS, which is release, stretch, strengthen. We're not going to go through that today, but what I will caveat is that this stuff's good, but you can go down this rabbit hole, and we're all perfectionists. So once we realize that we can't squat, we want to be able to squat straight away, and we want to fix it. So we can go down this rabbit hole of finding all these perfect exercises, etc. What I will say is it's consistency that will get you squat up. So regardless of finding the perfect program, regardless of how hard you are willing to try over the next couple of weeks, it's just squatting consistently over a few months period that's going to get you from not being able to squat to squat. So the most important thing you can do is keep squatting, and I'm going to show you in the next video, or it might be the video before this, how to incorporate this into your daily 30-minute training regime. What I will show you now though is my favorite exercise that worked the best for me, because when I started trying to train properly and really incorporate mobility into my training, which didn't come till after the military, because this knowledge isn't that good in the military, to be honest. It wasn't when I was in. I was really tight in my squat, and there's one particular movement that really helped me, and that is this movement I'm going to show you now. And when it comes to improving your flexibility, most of us think we just need to stretch and we need to find all these stretches, but actually it can be really helpful to do movements with a little bit of weight. And the reason for that is because the weight actually stretches the muscles into a natural position. So there's a couple of things that we can do. The first one, which we are going to look at again in a moment, is you can just do what we call a front squat. So you grab yourself a kettlebell, not a bar, and you hold on to it. This is quite a heavy one. This is a 24, but you can start with a 10 or a 12. You're going to hold it, and you're going to come down into your squat. And what you'll notice that's happening here is I'm just going to let my knees rest on my elbows rest on my knees. What you're going to notice is happening here is that now the weight of this kettlebell is keeping me forward. So for those of us who've got tight ankles and we're falling back, well, the weight's actually pulling me forwards. And because I've got my elbows on my knees, that's actually stretching my calves and giving me a nice stretch. And it's keeping my core active as well. So this is a really good way to stretch. We're actually going to go for this movement as level 2, but there's another way that I can improve this stretch even more. So let's say that I've got really tight ankles, and when I squat, they come up. Okay, that's the only way I can squat, or I fall backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to a wall, and I'm going to squat. So I'm going to get my tailbone in contact with the wall. And I'm going to squat, and my hips, I'm going to find where I need to squat, and my heels come up slightly. So I don't want to be up too much. I don't want to be here, because that'll just be silly. But just let's say that we want to aim for about a couple of centimetres to an inch of raise. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm not just going to relax back on the wall. I'm going to keep my tailbone in contact with it. I'm going to pick up my kettlebell. And you can pick up a kettlebell really cheap. And I'm going to sit here. And now if my heels go straight to the floor, it's too easy. Okay, so this is probably about right for me. I'm getting a nice stretch now. And what's happening is I'm just going to try and stay here for maybe a minute, maybe 2 if I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment. And what happens is as I stay here, and my hips stay in contact with the wall, the weight of this kettlebell is stretching my calves. It's stretching all that muscle around my calf and my ankle, which is slowly mobilising my ankles, which is making me better at the squat. So this is the movement that worked the best for me, getting into this position here. And it's just holding it for 60 to 180 seconds. Really works wonders for stretching your tight calves off and mobilising your ankle joint. So once we're able to sit in that full depth squat position, we're doing really well. So we've got ourselves into a good place. Now level 2 then, so we've hit level 1, we can get into a full squat. Level 2 is sitting in that squat for 5 minutes. And the reason that we test this is because you can be flexible enough to get down into the squat, but still have tightnesses that aren't going to show themselves until you're down in that squat position and trying to hold it. So building up the ability to sit in that squat for 5 minutes stretches everything off and really opens up your hips, your shins, all the muscles around your ankles. And you might think that sounds impossible, but when I used to live in Nepal after the military, you see 80 and 90-year-olds sitting in a squat position all day, every day. So it's nothing to do with age, it's just to do with the fact that in the UK and Western countries, we sit in chairs a lot and that just messes up our squat. But if you work on it and you do the basic things, you can have a really good full depth squat at any age. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna simply try and sit in the squat for 5 minutes. So we come down, we set a timer, we can relax, you don't need to be active, and we're just trying to relax and stay into that position. Once you can hit 5 minutes, that's what I'd say has got you to a level 2. Now, you might get frustrated with this because you're probably going to find that you can't do 5 minutes when you start. So what I'd say is just don't be too harsh on yourself. First of all, try and hit a minute. After that, try and hit 2 minutes. After that, try and hit 3 minutes. And you'll find that it just comes and it gets easier. It's really not as hard as you might think. Again, it just comes down to consistency. Now, one thing you can do here if you find that you're getting a really deep burn in your shins, which is a good thing, by the way, that's all the muscles stretching off. But what you can do just to get a bit of time down there is you can raise your heels. And a really easy way to do this is with a pole, and we'll look at this in a minute, but like basically like a broomstick, or you can use a book or just something to raise your heels up an inch or 2. You can raise your heels and you can come down and practice like so. Now this is much easier because it's taken this ankle joint flexibility out of the equation. So it's good to build up some stamina down this position, but you don't want to rely on this all the time because it's not actually stretching the ankle joint, and we want to have this good range of motion in our ankle joint. And this is really important, by the way, because if you think about the most basic of fitness exercises, which is walking, well, if you're tight in your ankles, you're putting yourself at risk of getting injured because those ankles could, or those muscles in the ankle could tear or sprain. And also, your training's going to hurt more if you're not nice and mobile around your ankle joint. So this is really important, whether your goal is, I know I've already said this, but I'd like to labour the point, whether your goal is just to be healthy and live as long as possible, or you want to be a high-level athlete, building this up is going to really help you stand the test of time, get the best results possible, and not get injured. So ideally, down full depth and staying down there for 5 minutes. You might be thinking to yourself, you might be asking the question, where should I put my feet? There's no right or wrong answer with this. Find the position that's most comfortable for you. You can twist your feet out, but just don't twist your feet out this far. So that it shouldn't really be twisted out past 30 degrees. So don't go any wider than 30 degrees in regards to twist, and you can play around with your width. It doesn't really matter. Everybody's different. We've all got different hips and length of legs that affects which position your feet should be in. When you come out, you get a nice stretch in your hips, and that means you've done it properly. So now that you've developed the ability to not only sit in a full depth squat, but be able to stay down there for 5 minutes, we're in a really good position in regards to flexibility around our hip joint and our knee joint and our ankles, which is great. It's really good for our longevity. It's really good for our training. What we want to do now then is take that to the next level. And the way that we're going to do that is by adding in a little bit of weight. And adding in a bit of weight is really good because, again, it gives you a better stretch, but it also trains the muscles to develop, which is important. So I'm going to grab myself a kettlebell. Now I'm grabbing a 24 here, but you don't need to start with something like a 24. I would say on average, guys, you should start with a 16. Ladies that haven't been training before, start with maybe like a 12 or a 10. And you can get them relatively low cost. That's why we promote kettlebells, because many of us don't want to go to the gym. We don't want to go and join a gym. These are great because relatively low cost and we can just have them at home. So I'm going to grab myself 24. Okay, it's not really weight that's important. Now it's really all about the form and the timing. So level 3, to pass on a level 3, so level 1 was being able to get into a full squat. Level 2 was being able to stay in that squat for 5 minutes. To pass on a level 3, we need to be able to do 10 reps with a kettlebell. And it needs to be, like I said, guys, 16 and over, ladies, kind of 10 and over. Much lighter than that isn't really going to count, although you can do this stuff with the kids as well, so they can go much lighter. And what we want to be able to do is 10 reps, okay? And what we want to incorporate here is tempo. So what I mean by tempo is that you take about 3 seconds on the way down, and then you have a 2-second pause at the bottom. And the reason for this is that we can just absolutely kind of hammer through these reps. That's not what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to strengthen the muscle and prove that our body is capable of getting into that position under a little bit of load. And when we go slow, that also helps us build a little bit of strength and muscle mass in the legs as well. So I'm going to get the kettlebell into the front rack position, okay? And that's where I hold it up here, okay? And I can rest it on my chest, that's fine, whatever works best for you, but I'm going to hold it here. I'm not going to hold it out in front of me because that'll make it really hard. And I'm going to come down, and I'm trying to play around with my feet position, but I'm still working on the same rules that I had before. So hips need to go below parallel, knees need to stay over toes, heels staying in contact with the floor. I'm going to come down, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, like so. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, like so. And I'm already getting out of breath, right? 3, 2, 1, 1, 2. And you'll notice that in the bottom of my squat now, I'm actually active, okay? So I'm like this, I'm not just switched off and like this. So I've got to stay active here. A lot of us are going to find that this is really difficult, and the reason for this is because it's now starting to strengthen and test the muscles in my upper back and my shoulders as well as my legs. I'll do one more rep. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, and so. If you're struggling to do that, start with a lighter weight or just start with less reps, or maybe speed it up a little bit, but you've got to get to 10 reps at that tempo of 3 seconds on the way down, 2-second pause at the bottom. Okay, so now we're at level 4. So we've done level 1, which was we can get into a full depth squat. We've done level 2, which is we can hold that squat for 5 minutes. We're already smashing it. Then we've gone on to level 3, which is where we're doing it with a bit of weight for 10 reps. And now we're going to go on to level 4, which is the overhead squat. Now, some people watching this might be like, oh, shouldn't you be doing heavy weights and getting a barbell? This training series that we're putting out here isn't to get people into really high levels of performance level fitness. This is to help you understand how to get fit to be healthy. So we want to give you the minimum viable product that you need to be able to enjoy good health alongside a busy life. So yes, you can go and do heavy squats, front squats, back squats, barbell, all of that stuff. But if you just want to be healthy and you want to put in the minimum amount of effort possible, this is what you need to do. So we've got to that level there where we can squat. Now we want to go into the overhead squat. And if you remember what I said at the beginning of the video, the reason that the overhead squat is an important movement to move up to is because it starts to test the shoulder flexibility and the spinal flexibility. And a lot of us, especially us blokes, we are really tight in our thoracic spine, this part here, and that's going to prevent us from doing an overhead squat. But that's good because by working on the overhead squat, we're going to address that part of our spine. And when we open up our thoracic spine, it helps us breathe better, it helps our posture, stops us getting shoulder pain, etc., etc. So I'm going to show you how to do the overhead squat. I'm going to do it against the wall because that's how we're going to do it at home. Okay, so if you come to the wall with me. So what we need to do for this is we need to get ourselves a broomstick, okay? What I've got here is a piece of waste pipe from Screwfix, which is branded as a mobility pole, but it's really just a piece of 32mm waste pipe. You can buy this for about £6. But if you don't want to buy one of these, just get yourself a broomstick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pole, and I'm going to go nice wide on the grip, nice and wide on the grip, okay? It needs to be really wide here, because if you try and do this, it's going to be very difficult, although there are some people that are very flexible that can do that. But what we're looking for is a nice wide grip. And then I need to find myself a bit of wool, okay? And then what I'm going to do is measure 5 centimeters away from the wall, okay? I'm not going to do that now because it'll be boring for you to watch me getting a tape measure, but it's, to do it quickly, it's the width of 2 credit cards, if that makes it easy for you. So you get a credit card, put it down, mark it, go again, that gives you 10 centimeters. Now I know from eyeballing that that's about here, okay? So I'm going to go 10 centimeters away from the wall. And again, you can play around with your feet position. It's going to help if you twist your feet out slightly. Then I'm going to grab on to the pole, nice wide grip, and lock the pole out. For this test to work and to be a pass, your elbows have to stay locked out throughout the test, and you can't smack your face into the wall. What's going to happen with a lot of us here is we are going to hit our faces into the wall. So a pass, let's see if I've got the flexibility whilst I'm on camera, no pressure. So a pass is where I'm about 10 centimeters away, and I come down, full depth squat, and then come back up. I'm going to do 5 reps of that to pass. So we need to come down, elbows stay locked out, and I come back up. If you're really flexible, you want to be 5 centimeters away. Let's see if I've got that in me at the moment. Only just, I'd say that's a partial pass. So this stuff is a constant work and effort, right? So now what's going to happen for a lot of us is we ain't going to know what's going on with our bodies. So our bodies, if we're going to try and come down, we're going to go like this. Our arms are going to want to bend. We're just not going to be able to move. The reason for that is because you've got tightness in your shoulders or your thoracic spine. So if you've got tightness in your shoulders, you're going to struggle to get them back. Blokes struggle with this more than ladies in general. So you're going to find that your shoulders really don't want to come back. Okay, so you're going to try and make up for that by bending your arms. And a lot of us are going to have tight thoracic spine. So if you watch this bit of my back here, Laura, if you just come a bit closer to my back, so you can just see this as I'm going down, what you'll notice is that upper part of my back, as I'm coming down, it slowly extends. So it actually kind of curves what we'd say like the opposite way, okay? So it actually looks like it's extending slightly. Now, if that was really tight, and you see a lot of us blokes, we're kind of like, it's not just blokes, but more blokes. If it's really tight, we're gonna find that as we come down, that spine doesn't wanna move. And we just get stuck there. So that's where a lot of us are gonna get stuck. Now, doing this movement's gonna really help with that because it stretches us over time, but we also wanna get into the habit of using things like foam rollers if we're particularly tight. And what I'm gonna show you now is, because I know a lot of you are going to have the tight thoracic spine issue, I'm going to show you a really good exercise to start to open that spine up. And just doing this exercise once, literally the first time you do it, it's going to give you a really nice kind of feeling of stress relief and increased mobility in your upper spine. Okay, so we've done a really good job. We've got to that full depth squat. We've held the squat for 5 minutes. We've worked on doing a squat with a kettlebell in that front position, so we started to build up a bit of strength around that position. And then we've looked at the overhead squat and everything's come to a halt, and that's really common, so don't beat yourself up. It's a difficult movement to master, but again, consistency, if you keep doing it, it will pay off. And we'll show you in the next video, or maybe the one before this, how to work this into a daily or 3 times a week routine so that you get there. What I should caveat here before I show you how to open up that upper back a little bit, which is what I'm going to show you with this, is again, it's patience. And this stuff, this is like a kind of 6 to 12 month journey for most of us. So if we've never been doing this stuff before, and we haven't been looking after our posture, and we haven't been doing any kind of movement training in our day to day, we're going to be stiff. That's just part of life, okay? And it just takes a bit of time to undo that. But what's great about the human body is that you can undo 20 plus years of not training and not being flexible. You can undo that in like 6 months. So it's actually a good thing, but it will take a bit of time. So just be patient with it and don't beat yourself up. And just remember that if you quit because you're not getting results really quickly, you're going to keep going the other way. You're going to keep getting more stiff and more tight. Whereas if you just work on this consistently, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, you're going to keep going towards more and better flexibility. So if you were really tight in that upper back and you were struggling with the spine, I will do a whole separate video on how to like loosen the shoulders, how to use balls, how to use foam rollers to do that. But one of the most common issues is this tight upper back. Okay, and we get this because we're on our phones, we're working, we're driving, we're in this position a lot. So the body starts to like, all the shoulders start to adapt to be like this, which is not good. and then the spine gets stiff because the spine is supposed to bend forwards, but it's also supposed to extend backwards, and we don't do that, and then it just gets tight and horrible. So we need to kind of remind it how to open up the other way. And one of the ways of doing that is with a foam roller. And what we do is we put the foam roller on the floor and we get it into, do you want to come a bit lower, Laura? So we get it into a thoracic spine. Now what we mean by thoracic spine is the bit of spine that's around your shoulder blades. And most of us know that this is the lumbar. There's no point in rolling that. It doesn't really achieve anything, okay? We want to roll the thoracic. So we don't want to roll here. You're not going to injure yourself if you do, it's going to feel a bit weird, but we want to roll kind of from here upwards. Don't try and be a perfectionist with it. You're going to know if it's in the wrong place because it's just going to not achieve anything. So I get it into just below my shoulder blades, like so. You can get all sorts of different foam rollers, so I've just got a click already just from doing that. I spend a lot of time on my computer, on my phone, so you know, I'm just as bad as anybody else at this stuff. It's modern life, so we need to undo or offset the negative components of modern life, which is we spend a lot of time sat down. So this stuff's becoming more and more essential for healthy living. So I get it into my thoracic spine like so, and the first thing I'm going to do is just, because I might be really tight, I'm just going to play around. So I'm just going to work around each vertebrae. I'm going to try and bend over backwards. And you'll notice, if Laura's shown on the camera, that my tailbone isn't lifting up, because if I do that, I'm not actually bending my spine. So if I keep my tailbone in contact with the floor, and bend back, I'm getting a nice stretch on my spine like so. Now, some of us are going to find that that's difficult and that we don't really know how to get back. That's fine, just try and increase over time, and you might get some crunches, you might feel like you kind of, your lungs are opening up. That's a good thing. Okay, then I'm going to work down. I'm not really going to go into my neck, because I'm not going to achieve anything there, so I'll just kind of get to the base here, and I can try and open up like so, or with my hands like that. And the next thing I can do is actually lift my hips up and come up and down a few times, and that's going to hit some of those muscles around the spine. And then the other thing I can do is grab onto a pole. So if you just, where's my pole gone? Oh, look at that, it just flew into the camera. So I can grab onto a pole as well, get into that position again, and then I can try and extend over with the pole, and I'm really trying not to lift my hips up. And what that's doing is it's stretching my spine and my shoulders, and I try and get my head through. You can twist and you can just play around, and there's no right or wrong way to do this really. You just want to keep doing it and see where you feel like you're getting a good stretch. I broke my collarbone when I was 18 playing rugby, so I get a lot more tight in my left shoulder. So I'm feeling a really good stretch there in my left shoulder. And again, this stuff, when you do this should be at the beginning of a session, especially if it's got overhead squats in it. And it should be a minute or two, maybe 4 or 5 minutes if you're really feeling committed, but a minute or two, 3 or 4 times a week, that's all you need. It's consistency that leads to this stuff. One of the biggest breakthroughs for me has been with my training and my health is realizing that you can improve your flexibility through the actual movements, because I've got no interest in stretching. It bores the life out of me. I don't want to sit there and just hold a stretch or just, you know, do all this stuff, but actually realizing that I can improve my flexibility by doing movements, which is a bit more active for the short attention span mind. That's really helped me. So that's what I want you to think about. You do some stuff at the beginning to mobilize, but when you do the sessions as well, which we're going to teach you, you're actually getting that flexibility increase through the sessions as well. So there we have it, a simple 4-level process to get you from not being able to squat to being able to squat like a mobility ninja. If you want to be healthy, if you want to be fit, if you want to make health and fitness a regular part of your life until your senior years, and you don't want that to take any longer than kind of 30 to 40 minutes a day, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Make sure you subscribe and like to this channel so that you can see future videos that are going to help you get all that knowledge you need to make health and fitness a regular, simple part of your life.